What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into the 69th edition of the Tuesday Track Talk, featuring, well, two of us, and our third guest this week being Ryan Farrell. Ryan's joining us for the episode today. Ryan, how you been?
I'm good. I guess I'll be your driver for today.
Perfect.
I noticed you guys were missing that key element, so
you're the first driver that we've had, so this is cool for us to finally have a driver on and get some insight from within the car. So how's the off season been?
Hopefully makes this pit crew a little bit smarter too.
Yeah, there you go. We'll get you guys trained up. For better or worse. I don't know. I got probably some bad habits too.
We'll figure that out.
Oh man. How's the off season been?
It's been for me, it's been slow. I've got 3 kids now, and that definitely, it's different than it used to be, that's for sure. We actually had a pretty good start. We always strip the car down and try to rebuild it, look for any problems. We had kicked around trying to get a different car this year. We've been running the same car. So every time you see me race now, going back to 2018, it's been the same chassis, which is getting kind of dinosaurish.
Sure.
But I mean, every time I'm convinced I need to get a new car, it actually runs good. So I just got to keep threatening it, and it comes back around for me. So, but it has been kind of odd having the same car for that long. There's some stuff we'd like to do a little differently, but on the other hand, we've got a lot of time trying to take this left-hander we got and maximizing everything we can get out of it. So it still responds to adjustments, and we're going to give it another go. So we stripped it down and got the motor out over to Mike Thierry right away, and we'll hopefully have that back early March, and then a couple of upgrades, maybe some suspension changes, little tweaks we thought we needed from the year, and then we'll be right back at it. Apparently, I'm going to be replacing some doors, so in case anybody's interested.
May have ended up on 1 or 2 Christmas lists here a little while back. So
yeah.
Cool. Cam, you got the first one. Go ahead.
All right. So yeah, we're gonna just rattle off a few questions. Kind of go back and forth here. A little bit all over the place, but obviously focusing on the short track side of things. So first off, we all know, and for us, we listen to the radios when we're at the racetrack. We're, I would say, pretty dived into the full race.
Sorry.
No, and I bring this up because you are definitely one of the more entertaining at times drivers to listen to. So I feel like that's just a part of your program as a whole. So what is the most fun part of your racing program, do you feel?
I would say, the fact that it exists is probably pretty fun.
Fair enough.
I'm really no guarantee that there's a story, and I've been on other podcasts about like winning some money on DraftKings and use that to float the team while I was going, because I used to race for Dan Church, and that was awesome while it lasted. And then he had to move on with business and stuff like that. So I was kind of like Cole Trickle. I lost my ride, and then I ended up getting it just enough money. Oh, they're getting phone calls here. I ended up getting just enough money with DraftKings to buy the car and keep it going. And it's been a lot of the same people since back in 2008 with the street stocks at Slinger when I started. And to think that same group now, we go to super late races and occasionally do pretty well. It's pretty cool that way. And it's like a real team where nobody's paid to be there. And there's a lot of that out there in racing now. And really it's just kind of the way it has to be with how difficult this all is. And, but we're one of the few out there that's, I think, fairly competitive, that has a group of guys that just show up to the shop and volunteer their time, and then show up to the track and volunteer their time. And, I've been accused of having like half the pits in my pit. I don't know if you've ever, like, we have so much fun and we always invite everybody. It gets a little crazy sometimes, but the days you're shorthanded, you don't have to worry about, because there's usually a surplus of like 5 or 6 people you probably don't need to get through the weekend. But it's nice to have some fun people with you all the time, and they always find ways to be helpful, or they meet other people at the track, and then they ended up hanging out with us, and you just get to meet a lot of people because of it. So yeah, that's how I'd sum all that up.
Kind of it's like the dirt scene where it's like you always see guys when in the hot pits, you see guys jump in or something like that. And
if a guy's shorthanded, for sure. And then they usually stay around.
For sure. The other thing too is like and you mentioned like guys not really getting paid for it. I've always said too, it's like I feel like a ton of teams is always if guys are getting paid, it's a steak dinner and a case of beer is the extent of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like I always think like when we think of a race team, I still think back to like the '90s. You knew who all the crew chiefs were on all these teams.
Yep.
Ray Evernham, Jimmy Makar, whoever Earnhardt had at the time, and then you think of like the Flying Aces and that. It's just, but that team, it's more of a team than just guys that were looking for something to do on the weekend and took a payment to show up at the races and help out. I mean, they're just there because they want to be there, and that's awesome. I'm really proud of that part of it. So.
And just having the same group of guys too. That just helps a
Well,
ton.
I mean, to have anybody volunteer their weekend, okay, if they lose an entire day at the races, usually I don't know about you, but I go home from the races extremely tired, maybe more
I
than
have
most
my
because
days.
Yep.
well, whether it be because of actual racing or because of post racing,
Yep. Yep.
or the fact that you have to. I mean, one of the big complaints with short track racing is why are we there at 6 a.m. or whatever, 7 a.m. for a race that isn't until late afternoon, or if it's a night race, why are we there before noon anyway? So these are long days, and with the way super late model tires are, it takes so long to get all the stuff done at the track. And sometimes tech is probably overkill in terms of just the stuff we've been checking all year. You got to push the car around through tech. It just takes an army to do it. And so these people give their whole weekend or at least half their weekend to the number 80 team. And I'm just always kind of floored that they do it. And when I'm all, pissed off about something, you try to remember, oh, these guys are here to have fun too. So just
Yep.
maybe relax a little bit. But
Yeah. So kind of going the other way, I think people think about racing sometimes and they go, man, just you have a car, you unload and you go. It's not always the truth, more often than not. What would you say would be the biggest struggle with racing the short track scene?
so it is kind of what I was talking about where, okay, it's hard. It's not easy to win this. They don't, Ty Majeski doesn't show up and think, oh, I want to let anybody else win today. Right. And if he's not there, you got a list of 5 or 6 guys after that are really tough to beat. And so, even if you do everything right, the chances that you get that gratification of winning are so slim. It is just not. How many guys won more than one feature last year? Like the list is maybe 3 in super lights and asphalt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Ty usually gets a good chunk of it, and sometimes you look at the end of the year and you're like, "Well, I can't believe that guy didn't win a race," and it's because it's just so hard, and so that's part of it. I don't really lose sleep over other drivers. Usually, it's like I worry about crew chiefs. It's the guys setting these cars up that are getting so good, or maybe know people that have ties to some R&D stuff at NASCAR, and you see these subtle changes in a Fury or even Toby cars and that, and I'm racing Toby more than anybody. I'm racing is it Wimmer or Travis Sauter? These are the guys I think of, and while the guys driving them, they're all really good too. So that certainly doesn't make it easy, but those guys can make a lot of guys fast, and so that's who I'm losing sleep over. Who's Morrissey helping in a given weekend? He's another one, and so you got to try to beat those guys. So if I do everything right driving, I still might be suffering because those guys just have their cars tuned in better than I do. So it is really tough. And asphalt racing, I've always said, like, I don't know if you guys have talked about this. You probably have. On dirt, a good driver can make up a handful of spots, I think, on guys that aren't as experienced or whatever. But on asphalt, it's really hard to make up more than a couple spots by just purely out driving a guy. You're so limited by what the car can do at the edge of grip, and you heat up the right front tire, you heat up the right rear, and the guy behind you doesn't. Well, he's coming around you, so tough to beat that. You got to beat the other cars just as much as the other drivers. So
Here he is. Speak of the devil.
Yep. The other man, the other stone.
now we got a race team.
Yep.
Get close.
Hey, we forgot the money guy. We need a money guy.
Well,
Yeah, there you go.
That's probably the biggest part is the money guy. But Van Girl, you got the next one, huh?
Yeah, I'll take this next one. So I going back to at least when I first started going to the short tracks, it was always been super late models are the main event. That's what everybody's there for. That's what they want to watch. But I think over the years, it's kind of transitioned where now that main event on a weekly program is your pro late, your limited lates, and now your supers are more of a touring series type of thing. Do you feel like that is a product that is healthy for a weekly program, or do you feel like it's still maybe the supers is what everybody's going for?
I would look at a place like Jefferson. They've seemed to buck that trend. Now, I say that as they've added, I think, another super late model race this year. Um, but they seem pretty well attended for weekly stuff. At least that's the perception I have.
Hmm.
Um, I know Slinger has struggled a little bit, and I think some of that is just that there's enough super late model races throughout the year that if you're going to pick or choose which week you want to go, watching super late models go around Slinger is like
Oh,
that is awesome. That is the best.
there's nothing you can
That's
compare it with.
like I go into the stands because I often have missed the Slinger Nationals. Like last year, making that was awesome. So um, I've gone on average probably every other year making it, and having to watch that race, like I'm like, man, we really do that. I cannot believe I drive around that track like that, but
Yep.
it's just so fast. So that that place I think struggles a little bit because they split it. But Jefferson, it's like people don't really know the difference. Been to a few Dell's weekly races where it was limited lates, and yeah, it doesn't seem like it's quite as well attended. I would agree. There's probably it's hard to have too much of an opinion without having a limited late model because there's just guys that can't do the super late model thing. I wonder sometimes if maybe we watered down the late model class too much where it wasn't. I mean, you guys probably remember go back 15 years, sportsman racing was huge, right? So
Yep.
if you wanted to run a late model, you knew what you were up against, and winning the B feature was a big deal. And I thought there was nothing wrong with that. And now we have trucks and 602s and super lates and limited lates and just some other variations CWRA, and it's maybe watered down a little too much. Where um, some of that if you could maybe I don't know. I guess I don't have all the solutions on that, but if everybody's a winner, then winning the B feature doesn't mean anything. So um, just real different culture shift with that. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'd have to look at the numbers at the track with what they're making and see if it would work. But I know Jefferson's making it work, and I do like watching those limited lates go there. And I've seen some pretty good limited races elsewhere as well. So or pro lates, whatever you want to call them.
Yep.
But
I feel like Dell's puts on a pretty good show as well. I think Dell's just puts on a good show every
yep,
week, with no matter
yep,
what's on the track. I think Kakana's probably got a halfway decent pro late, limited late crowd too, or at least car
yep,
count, I should say. I think those are
Yep.
your two other big ones that have
yeah, I would say
decent car
so.
counts.
Yep.
Yep.
But yeah, I guess I don't know how to answer the question in any kind of
Yeah.
detail. You'd have to. It's hard to say. If there wasn't so many divisions, would it be better for everybody? I don't know. That's kind of the one thought I always have is it too watered down? But
And
could
I
we
think,
survive with two? I think so. If it was just limited lates and super lates, that'd be great. But the trucks put on a great show too. So
oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
I wouldn't want to kick those guys out. Those guys are great.
No.
So
And I mean,
Yep.
that's kind of Kellen, I'm going to steal one of your questions here since they kind of go hand in hand with each other. I mean, it's one of
Yep.
those that is limited late or a pro late kind of that weekly program. And I think Dell's is a good example of that with them now becoming a NASCAR weekly track.
yeah,
Do we feel like that's where the tide is shifting, where that's the weekly program? And I don't see where it's a bad thing where a guy can get his feet wet running weekly in a bigger car like that and then test the waters in a super late on a small touring series like the Alive for Five.
yep. Yeah, I think as long as the tracks can make it financially viable, that's really the only then everything starts and ends there. If it's financially viable, then I don't really care what I'm watching as long as it's competitive and there's a lot of cars and good racing. So
Yep. And ultimately, I think good racing is what's going to bring a crowd in too.
yep.
Yep. What's one event, looking at the schedule ahead, what's one event you're really excited for in 2025?
So I mentioned so I always like I go to the Dells thinking I can win. So I always love those events, right?
Yep.
There's always a chance we've run pretty well through the years. But one I really enjoyed last year was Slinger, man. We ended up sixth in the feature for nationals. And it was fun to have a car that was competitive at Slinger again. That's where I learned to race. And we've had some bright spots the last couple of years there where we're starting to hit on the setup a little bit again. And I swore I was coming back again after nationals because I felt like if we could have just not had, we had 2 flat tires right in the middle part of the race. If that didn't happen, I think we'd have been on the podium at the end. But it just it didn't work out, and I'm anxious to go back for that. Hopefully we can make the show again on time. And that was like winning the feature. Hey, we made the nationals, and now kind of run that last chance race, which is just horrible to run in for your nerves.
Oh,
so I mean, you talk about like just having your gut in knots going out to race. It's just that one there does it for sure. So I'd say Slinger Nationals is probably tops for my list.
and I've always said that the Nationals is one of the crown jewels of Midwest racing up here, and that's just one that everybody wants.
Yep. I'd really like to get that Sauter race last year. We had a good run at the Dells. That's up there. Any of the Live for Fives are pretty good. I'm hearing rumors of a 10 grand to win Tundra race. I'm looking forward to seeing if that comes to fruition or not. So if I'm wrong, don't shoot me on that. I don't mean to mislead you. I don't want this to be fake news. I already stood you up last week.
We are no strangers to fake news pointing at a
nice.
Yeah.
So, that's I'm hearing no Milwaukee Mile on the schedule this year. So with that one out, I mean that's okay. That I don't know that had to be an every year thing anyway. My guess is it'll probably reappear somewhere in the future. But so that means Slinger at Father's Day is wide open if I remember right. So that might be kind of fun. So
and if I remember right, I think actually that Slinger Father's Day race is a ASA National Tour race.
Oh, that's a Stars race.
That's the
I'll
Stars
probably
race.
Be watching that one. I don't think I'll be able to run that race. Just with the way the National Tour rules line up, but I will probably be there watching that for sure. So
that one will be interesting.
We've debated back and forth about the 4-barrel at Slinger and what that would do, and we just can't come up with a solution or a product of what we could ask it or what we could think it would be. So it's just one of those wait and sees and got to be there type of things.
I'd be all about that. That'd be cool. Hopefully they do have 4 barrels. I mean, if everybody's on a 4-barrel and you're down 10 horse, if you're down 10 horse on a guy, or he's got a better bottom end than you, right? If you're down 10 horse when the horsepower is like 500 to 600, it's a lot better than when it's, well, I guess it depends on what dyno you look at, but I'll say the super late model ranges from 450 to 500 if they're being honest. And then if you put a 4-barrel on it, you're pushing 600. Well, if you're down a few horsepower, but everybody's between 575 and 600, who cares, right? Everybody's got enough power to melt the tires off of it. So I've always been a fan of trying to do that. I've heard it was more expensive on engines though, because if you lighten stuff up, it pounds on it a lot harder. So maybe, be careful what you wish for with that.
Sure.
So, but I've always wanted to, I've never run a super late model with a 4-barrel. I guess I did with an Ace motor a few times, but it just wasn't set up for it. So I would love to try that with a bigger power motor for sure.
I always figured Milwaukee would be a 4-barrel just with how big of a track that is.
I don't know that would be really fast. So probably, I think they topped out at 150 before. I would be. We're already faster than NASCAR. We go around that place, and the roll cages for our cars are probably not as stout as what they should be for that kind of speed. I mean, you'd be over. I would think you'd be over 160 going into the corner. I mean, that's hauling the mail with a super late. Well, there's not a lot of banking to save you if you start spinning either.
And there's 2 instances that come to mind. Fenhouse, was it 2 or 3 years ago when he wrecked in practice?
Oh yeah.
There was that one,
and I was glad.
And then I think it was Jim Sauter Jr. down at St. Louis. I just bring it up because it's kind of similar. That one was another big one too.
Yeah, they were hauling there.
Yeah,
I think Sauter flipped, didn't he?
I think he flipped when he hit the wall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, then Nason almost flew over at Nashville.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You can hit a ton there, and they have.
They have. He damn near did too.
Man, Fenhouse, or Nason when he started getting airborne with a super light. Looked like a video game, man.
Oh,
yeah. That was wild.
Then it came down. It landed on the ground, and he was greeted by the wall.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we would call that a junkyard car afterwards.
Yeah. As I said, I've had my car for a while, and avoiding that situation has been key to that. I've been fortunate with that, and so that goes back to why I was happy just my team even exists.
Yep.
So
Yep. Kind of the last one we got for you here. We're sitting here in 2026. What does Ryan Farrell consider a good year in
25.
or
You're talking.
2025.
Yep.
Yep, 2025.
Well,
You
as old as I
accomplished
am, I feel
what?
like 2026 is almost here already. Like this is just where
Easy
I'm
there.
at. Like,
Yeah. Easy there,
yeah,
killer. Don't need to be
it's
26 already.
yeah. So what's good? So I mentioned earlier that how many guys had actually won multiple races? I know last year Ty did it. I think Summers did it. I think Fenhouse did it.
Obviously,
And
Majeski.
Ty. I gotta specify which Ty now. All these
Yeah.
ties are winning.
Both of them.
So
Both of them,
Frederickson and
really.
Majeski, Fenhouse, Summers. I don't even know if Casey did. I don't know if Zaire did. Um, so that I mean, if that's your list, winning one race sounds pretty good. That sounds like it'd be hard to argue winning one big super late race. Last year for us, it was short track. And I mean, that really defines when I think back on that year, it's going to be, well, that's the year we won short track. So 2024 was awesome.
Yep.
So, and we came close in some other races, that battle at Icebreaker with Frederickson and Casey. And then, yeah, I mean, there were some other finishers where we were up there, but that one, winning that one race really sets a tone for the year. And when you think about how many super lates there are, how many guys even won a race, is it more than, and if you include weekly, I guess the list gets a little bit bigger, but really about 10% of anybody wins a race in super late models. It's not easy. So
I
one win
bring
would be great. Two wins that'd be a phenomenal year. If I'm
I
being
bring
honest.
up super late model rankings. Cal and Cam, you know what I'm talking about on Twitter. So
Yep.
there's this guy that he just does super late model rankings on Twitter.
I know who you're talking about.
Yep.
I've
So
seen
it's
this.
always
Yep.
like the top 10 has got like 5 or 6 Midwest guys in it.
Yep.
And I think that's just a how tough, like you mentioned, how tough it is to win these races up here. And if you
Yep.
do, that's what gets you up there.
And they got some. They've had. I know what you're talking about. So they've had weekly guys in there too, and I'm like, I don't know if that's fair or not because like you should be at like it should be alive for 5 or 2 or anything like that. But
Yeah.
because I'll never be able to run the amount of races that these guys run. But
Yep.
that's just because I'm competitive and I have to bring that up. But
No, fair enough.
but it was cool to see that. Like I think Ty Frederickson was out front in that for a while. Fenhouse was there, and it's like, yeah, it's. But I don't put the Midwest as nobody's underdog. I think even I don't know anybody from the South that I think would come up here and be a lock to win. I just don't think it works like that.
No.
So
I mean, even when Pollard has come up here, he's won races up here, but
yep.
it took him a little while to figure it out too.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's come back since and struggled. So
I mean, I
and
think
that's what you got to remind yourself of when you get frustrated. Like these guys are good, man.
Oh yeah.
and I think back to that first national tour race at Madison. That it was May, it was hotter than hell. Nasty loaded up and left before the feature was over.
Oh
And
yeah.
you look at the list of guys that qualified in on time that were Midwest guys. The tour guys were the guys on the outside looking in. So that race to me, I think, was one that stood out in terms of how tough it really is up here with our super late racing. So I got one more for you because I don't feel like I could let this one go. I was literally crying laughing at this. So 2 years ago at Oktoberfest, the scavenger hunt interview with Ty Frederickson. How did that come about? I have to ask about that because
Oh man.
I was crying laughing watching that interview. How did that come about?
So it started with somebody gave Ty a microphone, which is a pretty good idea. And so he was running around and he got to us and we had been joking around because they had the scavenger hunt deal. And I'm like, oh, this is all cutesy stuff. This is not the real fest. All right. The real fest is blood alcohol level problems. It's spending too much on a pizza on the infield. It's outrageous tire bills. It is like running into people that you were mad at like an hour ago in the campground and then drinking with them. And
Big Red
so we
Barn
started taking
and
that list and like joking that we were. I think Jordan Navoy was in my trailer and probably I think Dennis Chase had popped in when we were in the middle of that, and so we were going to town with that list right as he walked up, and we just let it rip. So That was pretty funny.
I was sitting there. I watched that the first time, and I think I watched it like twice, and I was just crying, laughing, watching that. I'm like, where did that? Was so funny to watch. But
yeah, we had some fun with that one.
that was good.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's
the
just
racers experience.
it's the just the weird stuff or the oddball stuff that you do on the weekend, especially with how long of a weekend that is, that just gets you through it and lets you have fun with it.
Yeah, yeah. And I've been there with like horrible cars. It's like I'm ready to go home. This is rough,
Yep.
but since I started racing there, it's like I mean things get going pretty early in the morning, so you try to keep it PG, but sometimes you still catch yourself in a campground at 2:30 or whatever, and you're like, yeah,
Tomorrow's gonna
it's gonna be a
suck a
fun
little
day
bit.
tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hopefully this thing cooperates, so this isn't a long
Yeah.
day of changing Panhard bars and sway bars and shocks and people
Yep.
coming over and asking you, hey, what's going on with that thing? It's like I don't know. If I knew I'd have done it already. Sorry,
I'm just
hungover.
trying to recover myself to start with.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the wrap on the questions we had for you. We kind of mentioned it before we jumped on. We'll kind of touch on the Clash a little bit, and I know going back to the short track scene was a big deal for the Cup Series, and that was a big deal for promoting short track racing in general. Where do we even start with the Clash?
I mean, I said that I enjoyed it. I said it because one, you had packed grandstands for one. We all know the nostalgia that Bowman Gray is in the fighting, or not the fighting, but the racing that it produced and fighting sometimes. And just going back to the grassroots of NASCAR really as a whole. So I think he checked all the boxes with that personally. So I mean, we'll lead with that. Ryan, you're the one that kind of want to talk about this too.
okay.
So,
Well, I
I
didn't
mean,
want to jump in too fast, sir.
nope, you're good. What's on your
So first
mind?
off, that actually looked like a race as opposed to whatever that was at the Coliseum. I mean, that was terrible.
Yes.
And I like conceptually that you'd think it would have been the same, but something about that just looked more like a reasonable race where you could pass on the outside. And well, Blaney went from what in 200 laps? He went from
20, 23-2.
yeah. I mean, that was good. And so and he got some of them on the outside, and you could see guys working the lanes. At times, it kind of looked like Wausau to me, where you guys are crossing on the concrete off of 4, and the place is a little bumpy. And
Yep.
so racing wise, I thought it was way better. They still got a car problem though. That were they shifting? I don't think they were they?
No, and they were only in second gear. I heard that this morning.
They. I am so done with the shifting. Could you imagine racing Martinsville having to shift every straightaway? That's
Ugh.
1,000 shifts. I'd just be done with the sport. But at least they weren't shifting. I don't have enough attention span for that.
And
So
thank God it's not the old style where you still had to, foot clutch pedal and what am I
oh
thinking
man,
of?
yeah.
Yeah, the old style shifting.
And Hamlin said some stuff about how it kills, like if you kill your momentum and you can't shift, you have to pay for it, which is a good thing. That promotes passing. And so there's that problem. The other thing is these bumpers are like way too aligned. I can wiggle a guy in a super late model with very little effort, and he's going up the
Yep.
track. So the
Yep.
finesse part of this is gone because you just shove them forward. Like this is not, and they wonder why they're 3 wide at Daytona too, just shoving each other around. You can't buffer anything because you can't wreck the guy until you home run hit him, which I'm sure that feels great in the car, just getting completely nailed from
Oh.
3 rows back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the finesse part of short track racing where you can wiggle a guy and get around him is pretty much gone with that car because of the bumper alignment. So, I think there's something they could do with that too. But at least the race was better. It looked like a short track race. It kind of had like it looked like they were parked in the pits at the Devils afterward or in between.
Yeah.
It was cool. I really like that part of it.
And that's what I mentioned in our kind of our group chat as we were talking about it. It was cool when they showed the pits and you look past the haulers or the pit boxes and you could see the tree line.
Yeah, I saw that too. I completely agree. That was really weird.
It gave the feel of going back to the short track scene of it truly did, where it's not you have all of these facilities and everything at your disposal. It's you look and behind the pit boxes, there's a fence and it's the tree line, and that's where you're at. So that part I did, that picture kind of stuck on my mind in terms of that's what I saw, and I'm like, and I think I might have even said, to go on top of that, I might have even said it was like being in the pits in the Dells, or even on the edge of Madison too, where
It looked familiar, is what it looked like.
Yep.
So, yeah, that was cool. That was a good part of that.
Cam, I know you watched it too. What did you think?
Well, one, to Ryan's point too, I chimed in the group chat. I was surprised, similar racetrack to the Clash, but I was surprised at how well the outside line could hold up. And you saw it from Hamlin. Hamlin was holding his own with Elliott there for a while on the outside, and then, was able to cross him up, show him the outside, and then get around him on the inside. So I was surprised that it held up. I felt like it was going to be one of those, if you're not on the bottom, you're going to get freight trained. But if you had the car to do it, I felt like it put on some good racing there on the outside. And then, the other thing I think it was just awesome is some of the videos on Twitter seeing just how rowdy the fans are and just the amount of number ones that you see. And I mean, that it's funny. So cool event. I will say one thing I was a little bit disappointed on is I don't know if you guys saw some of the videos on Twitter of the driver intros, but light show and everything. And it's like, I'll have to send you some of them, but it was like, we didn't see any of the driver intros. And I was like, on Twitter, you see, big light shows, spotlight, like all this stuff. And I'm like, that'd have been cool to see on TV, but
I think that was one of those instances too. Like with that, you heard the fan interaction and who everybody was cheering for, and obviously who they weren't cheering for, and it got vocal from what I heard too.
Yeah.
Do you guys like that? Where like when Adele's does an intro on Live for Fire, you guys like the full out of car intros, or are you guys like, oh come on, we gotta get moving here?
If depends on how the program goes. It depends on how the program goes. It's some of those where if programs running late or we're rushing for weather, God forbid, or something like that. In car, just get them rolling. But those out of cars, especially at the Dells, where I think fans are a little more vocal in who they cheer for, especially like lacrosse for Oktoberfest, where they split the drivers, having come in from each end. I think that's just pretty cool too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we got to work on our music a little bit.
Yep.
Have some better intro music. We got to get some rock and roll going again.
Well, okay. So do you think? Okay, so I'll pose a question here. Do you think you got to do it like Bristol, where you have your own intro songs?
Well, I think that'd be. I've thought about that, but that would be like a lot of work. I think so. Either you got to have it where like the last winner or the fast time qualifier gets to pick, and it should be like when the last guy gets introed, or at some point in the intro, so you should hit the song.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
All right.
I've always been out of car intro. I enjoy that.
It makes it feel like it's a bigger deal. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. I've always enjoyed that. So,
and just having the car.
Somebody boo.
Oh.
One time I heard I was at the Dells last year and I was getting in my car and I just heard this like one guy was just screaming boos out as loud as he could at me and I'm like, who in the heck is that? Oh, it's Max Kaler's dad. I just started laughing. He's messing with everybody. It's pretty good. It's like everybody is. They all kind of cheer and clap, and then this one guy's just boo.
Yep.
So funny. It's like nice work. I like it.
Yeah.
I just like having the cars at that angle too, right on the bottom of the front stretch. It's just
if nobody's been there, it gives people like, hey, come watch this race. And when they're there, they're like, oh, this is like a big deal. So it's not just a bunch of cars going around for fun.
And then I remember. I got one more just because I thought of this. Tommy White, when he's standing in the front stretch doing the pointing.
Oh yeah.
What is it like from your perspective coming up to Tommy?
Like I always want to play chicken for like the best effect. Like because it's a show, right? You want to. Like I was on the pole at lacrosse one time and they had a camera in the back of the truck, the pace truck. And I'm like, how fast can I hit this thing? Like I'm thinking about running into it. So when Tom's doing that, like some guys would be like, oh, they come out of turn 4 and they just start moseying. And like, what are you doing? No, you got to go straight at them. And you got to jerk that wheel either way, whichever way you got to go, because that's what we're doing here, man. It's supposed to be entertaining. Now, I'm not saying you got to like be right to the last minute where we're worried about Tom here, but it should be like you're pointing at Tom and then you go. And that's how it is.
Yep.
So.
And I always love it when a guy.
I love that.
Oh, when a guy he waits until he points you in that direction, I love it.
like sometimes you forget your car is not that good and you're like, I'm going to the front today. It's like, oh, I know I'm not. This thing's handling like a bag of crap today. I'm not going to the front. But for a second there, I felt like I was. This is all awesome.
Yep.
So
Cam, I know you jumped in late. You got any thoughts you want to throw in quick or?
No, sorry, a little bit late. Um, I don't know if you covered this, but Ryan, I don't know if you want to throw out names, but is there anybody that any shows that you go to that you just really enjoy racing, brings out the best of you, that you get around and you're like, just good hard nosed racing? Is there anybody that comes to mind that you're like, I love going at it with this guy every single week?
oh yeah. I mean, really, it's kind of a long list. I always like racing with Casey. I always like racing with Dalton. I was kind of felt like Dalton was one of the better racers I've run with that sometimes you see or don't see at the big races the last couple of years. Um, I had a big win with Morrissey one time, and that was back a handful of years ago. I think it was right after COVID. It was one of the first races after COVID, and we won the Alive for 5 race. And Morrissey was the last guy I got. I always thought that was one of the best battles I'd been with, where it was like as clean as a whistle. But I mean, he had done a perfect job of using his car. Like there's things you can do if your car is tight or loose. How you drive the corner can make it so that you just optimize the opportunity to hold a guy off, and he was doing that really well. And finally, we got around him, won that race. So Morrissey, I don't feel like I get to race with Ty Majeski enough because he's always so freaking fast. So it's only been a couple of times I've really had a shot with him, but had some good battles with Fenhouse. Ty Fredrickson now is coming along, pretty fun to race with. Somebody that everybody always says I battle really hard with is Jordan DeVoy. And it's funny because I think they notice that because we're buddies off the track. So we'll go fishing during the week and then we'll have a race during the weekend. And it's like, I don't know if you race harder because it's your buddy or if it's just been dumb luck. But we've also given each other some good breaks. He had a race he won at Plover. And I had just had the restart from like the perfect restart and got ahead of him when I shouldn't have been. And I got out there and I see him coming in the mirror and I see him coming. I'm trying to catch Mondique. I could not get to Mondique's bumper. And here comes Jordan. And I just like pointed my hand out the window and said, good luck. You're either going to win this thing or wreck them, and I'm going to win it. So I had some strategy in my head. So we've had some give and takes, but there's been a few times where we were racing really hard. And one of us has ended up spun out. But now we just laugh about it now because we're getting older. And it's like, it's actually, I probably have the most fun running with him, to be honest with you. So
Fair enough. Anything else you want to talk about before we let you go here?
I don't know. We got most of it covered. I think I don't know if people like listening to sponsor lists. I'll just hit a couple highlights. We got Adams
Go
Towing.
for it.
So if anybody in this podcast, I don't know where are you guys all from? You guys all central Wisconsin or?
Yep.
Okay. Well, if you ever get stuck, you got to call Adams Towing, or if you know somebody that has a big rig that gets stuck, those are the guys to call. They like when you're looking for sponsors or you're dreaming up how your racing career is going to go. Like you think that you might get a sponsor like Adams Towing and Rick and Karen and them guys, but really it's how did you meet? Well, we were having fun with the Rossier group after the races. They introduced us and I didn't even know it was going to lead to this, but we just got to shooting a breeze, kind of like the podcast here. And one thing led to another. And so you're talking about people that are, they know what racing's all about because they've had cars through the years and it just makes it really easy to want to support, what they have or want to represent them because it's as good as it gets. So we got some other good ones too. Obviously Mike Thierry through the years has been a phenomenal sponsor. And makes it possible to do this without the engines. The engine stuff is by far the worst cost in racing, and Mike makes that way more financially reasonable for me. And he's a fun guy to have at the races too. He comes around and he'll just start soliciting setup advice. Be like, hey, you should run a bigger panhard bar. Like, all right, Mike, I'll think about that, and he'll just start laughing. It's like maybe put some more turns on the panhard bar or something. There's something off the wall that doesn't make any sense. And and then last year we got Jim Burke Excavating came on, and that was or at last couple of years now. Gosh, it's already been 3 years they've been on the car. And Jim and his family out of Illinois have been great supporters, and their son-in-law Brent kind of was a connection there. He's been spotting for us, and if you hear any of the banter on the radio, I'm sure Brent's involved in it. So sometimes he's calling me down, sometimes I'm calling him down.
Yep.
And we try to keep it pretty entertaining. So if you guys listen in, let me know if you heard something entertaining. I always enjoy that. But yeah, that's kind of some of the main sponsors. Oak Creek Autos sponsors a bunch of cars too. I should mention them. And yeah, so I could go on and on. Messenger Racing, and but I'll pause from there because I don't know that everybody loves hearing the entire list of the team and the sponsors and all that. So a couple of
Well,
highlights there.
if I remember seeing right, your Facebook page has all your sponsors on there as well, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. You can find us on Facebook. We have a website we occasionally update, but Facebook's really where it's at. It's kind of where we keep things updated there. So, got some more camouflage hats. Man, people really like camouflage hats. So we're gonna have more of those in the spring, and probably a new T-shirt this year, and they should be good. So hopefully, I don't know if DJs will be there or whatever, whoever's selling them. So you get them there, and but I had hats that I saved for sponsors that I ended up selling at the track because people were like hitting me up looking for these camouflage hats. So
Yep.
the people have spoken. We'll have some more. So
Heck yeah.
One last question. Keeping the same paint scheme for this year?
oh boy, you're opening up a can of worms there. So okay. I do not like to change my paint scheme because
Okay.
I grew up in the 90s, and in the 90s, you only had a special paint scheme if it was the All-Star race. And I am not
Yep.
going to put a new wrap on my car for a one-off deal or anything. So I like having the same paint job with like small variations year to year. I just feel like that's how it used to be, and people recognize it. And not saying that there's like thousands of fans that know my car or anything, but it's cool when somebody's like, "Oh, I like that paint job. You keep it simple," and we try to keep it the same because it's just how it used to be, and I'm grouchy that way. So I don't like it when you watch a NASCAR race. I have no idea whose car is whose. It's like, how do you feel like you've got the die cast for the year when there's 8 paint jobs for a given guy? I think it takes away from the sport. I don't know how they'd ever fix it, but I think I'm keeping the same paint job at least this year. We have talked about kicking it back to the old street stock days. I had a pretty cool looking red and white and kind of like chrome black paint job.
Yeah.
And one got me like the aero coupe window for that thing. Oh, it just looked awesome. So he called me, here, put this on your car. And I'm like, yeah. So I love that paint job. So if you ever see it turn red and black with a little bit of white, you'll know what happened, but not
Little
this year.
flashback to yourself.
Yep.
All
Yeah, I'm
right.
getting old. So I've got an old school. I got to throw back to myself now. But yeah, I've always been a fan of simple paint jobs like two tones and that. So
Yeah.
I don't like, so many of these cars look the same and they're often black now. And I was an Earnhardt fan. I love black cars, but if every car is black, it's not that cool anymore.
Yep.
So you got to mix that up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then
So as
there's
we got-
Weinkoff, who feels like gets every color in the rainbow on his, but
Well, he's had some cool ones.
Yep.
Yeah, the one reminded me of Darrell Waltrip's like chrome car.
yeah.
You guys remember that? The Parts
Yeah.
America one?
Yep, for sure.
Blinding everybody around him.
Well, as we kind of wrap up, for anyone listening, if you're looking to get involved with the sport of racing, your guy is right here. This is the guy to talk to. So the first event we'll get to see you, April at the Dells.
Yep, April in the Dells. We will be there like usual, and that's an early race, so it kind of puts a squeeze on us getting everything done. But we'll be there. So
cool. So if you're looking to be at the track, which we always push, being at your local short tracks, the Dells is a great place to be. Efficient shows, awesome facilities.
Yep.
Our personal favorite place to be. I don't know about anyone else, but we love being at the Dells. So we appreciate you taking time with us, Ryan. It's been awesome. I know everyone's schedules are a little bit busy, but we appreciate it. If anyone's looking to connect with the racing program, Ryan's your guy. But until then, we'll see y'all next week on the Tuesday Track Talk.
yep. Thanks a bunch, guys.